Okay, today we're here with Tom Olesic from Easy Solutions, who's going to talk to us about website basics. I've been working with Tom for about, I'd say 2 years now. Is that about right, Tom?
Yep, that sounds right.
Okay. And we've done a few joint projects together, and we know each other through some of our peer groups. So that's why I invited Tom here to talk to us about this topic today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Tom. If you do have any questions, I've got all the lines muted right at the moment. If you've got access to chat, you can go ahead and hit me with a question there. Tom does want interactive questions if possible. I just don't want to drown him out with the sound of everybody else's mics. So if you do have a question, go ahead and hit me in chat, and then I'll put you on with Tom. And without further ado, Tom.
Great. Hey, thanks, Tim. We'll do our best to answer questions as you go, so feel free to fill in that chat, and then Tim can ask me the question, or I can read it off, and we'll try to get our questions answered the best we can here today. I probably should have named it Website Basics, Getting It Right Finally, instead of the first time, because I know everyone on the call here already has a website, so that's good news. So my first question to you, obviously since I know you have a website, is really how many of you are happy with how the website looks and how it functions? And that's really the biggest thing that I see all the time, and you've probably heard it yourself. You know, you ask somebody, hey, what's your web address? And the first thing out of their mouth is, well, we have one, but don't go look at it, because it really it has old information, and it just looks old. So I'm sure you've heard that kind of comment as well. And then my next question is, are you getting the results that you want from your website? So a lot of us, we put up a website and we just throw some basic information out there, and we take the concept that, you know, if you build it, they will come. And of course, maybe that worked in Field of Dreams, but it just doesn't work in the real world. So we need to really make an effort to get the results that we want off of the website. So today we're going to talk about what makes a good website. And then we're going to talk about how do we really get that end result, which is how do we generate leads and or cash from our website. So let's start off with the goal of the website. Most people, your goal is several-fold. So one of the goals of the website is to be able to provide information, and you see that a lot. You know, there's a lot of, every website has some level of that the goal is to provide information, but some have a stronger commitment that that's the primary goal. Next, I'll argue, and there's not too many people who kind of take this stand, is I think one of the major goals of your website is a branding effort. It's to position yourself as the expert. So obviously most of us are great at what we do, or we wouldn't be in business in the first place. So like Jason there that's live in the office, you know, you guys are probably phenomenal at what you do. And if we don't reflect that on the website, then how does anybody else know that we're great at it and that we're an expert? One of the biggest reasons why people want to have a website is to generate a lead. And pretty much just looking at who's on the call here, that looks like this is pretty much everybody's goal is to generate a lead, to get somebody to send them an email or to call them so that they can then form that relationship and generate business out of that. And then others of us have a goal of to actually sell a product. So that's everybody, I'm sure, has bought something online, so that's no surprise there. And some of us can actually sell products online. So these are the four big goals of your website. So let's talk about the provide information. So this is your real brochureware kind of site. We want to answer real basic questions, like maybe what are your hours of operation, those kind of things, and maybe it's provide some product photos on that. So let's take a look at some examples here of some websites that one of their primary goals is really informational, and that's the basis for it. So let me drag a window over. So this is our client, Pellman Food, and actually all the examples I'm going to show you are websites that we've developed. So their primary goal is really just product information. They actually don't want you to call them. This is here's their homepage. They sell through a distribution chain, so they wanted a website to provide information as far as details about, you know, what's what are the actual ingredients in the different cheesecakes. So that was more important to them than anything else. It really wasn't to generate a lead. It was really to provide information and to hopefully drive people to their distribution list. So if you want to buy cheesecakes wholesale, that you need to call one of these folks and they'll help you out with that. Then I've got Taj Mahal Restaurant here. So let me go back to their homepage. Their primary goal is really for information. So think about it. When you're going to a restaurant, you want to know where they're located. You want to know what hours they're open. And then next, you probably want to know what their menu is. So if you're going to order out, you're going to jump online, see what they have, and then place your order. So this is a great example of a real information kind of website. My next example is a bank. So things that you might want to know are what are their deposit rates, what are their hours, where's their ATM machines. It's all information driven. And we've got another example. This is Veranda. This is a salon, hair salon, nail salon, and spa. You can get a massage or get your feet massaged. So their goal is really information about their salon, about the stylist. You can even take a tour here of the facility. So they're showing you pictures, and actually they're on the first floor of a building. So this is where I'm sitting right up in here. So this is just real information driven. You know, what kind of services do they offer? How much are the massages? And then next I've got Advanced Food Products, and they're a food manufacturer. So they make cheeses, dips, puddings, sauces, soups, different beverages, and they're really interested in providing just general information about their products, their ingredients, those kind of things. This is very information driven. So what questions, do you guys have any questions so far on information driven websites?
Yeah, let me open up some lines here. Anyone has a question for Tom about information websites? Your lines are all open. Anybody? Hey, Tom, real quiet.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
All right, next let's talk about being the expert. And I'm really just a big fan of that. One of the major goals in your business and on your website is to attain this expert status. So my big question is, you know, why am I saying that? Why do you want to be the expert? And my answer is so people trust you. So what we do know is that people buy things from people they know, like, and trust. So when they're on the website, they read through your copy and they say, oh, this company really, they understand my problem, they can really solve my problem, then they're going to start to trust you. And if they read information about testimonials or watch videos, then they start to form this relationship with you prior to you even them talking to you live and in person. So I really feel it's critical to develop this expert relationship on the website for this trust factor. So let's look at what makes you the expert. And an expert is somebody who's credible, who's knowledgeable, who's top in their field. And a lot of us on this call can really make that statement, that we're really credible and knowledgeable and we're top in our field on what we do and that we really can help our customers and clients. So we want to get that information across. So what do experts do? So how do you become the expert? You know you're the expert at it and you're great at it, but how do we communicate that to somebody else? And I think a lot of it really comes from writing and communication. So experts publish articles, right? I know Tim writes for a couple different trade publications. I write for a local business newspaper here in town. Experts write books. So I know Tim's written a book. I've written 2 books. If you write books, then there's this automatic perception is, well, if you can write about it, you must be the expert at this. Experts also produce different kind of training materials. So they're trying to educate people, whether these are manuals or documents or videos, that they're in a constant state of education to help people understand their industry or how they can help them, those kind of materials. Experts host seminars and webinars. It's kind of the adage of, you know, the guy who's talking, you know, squeaky wheel gets the oil or gets the grease, but the more you talk, the more you become the expert at anything. And then experts are also interviewed by other experts. They speak at industry events. They have followers, or what we call raving fans. And experts have just tons and tons of testimonials of other people that will, you know, verify that, yeah, they're great at this. They've really helped me. And I know some of you have some testimonials on your website to try to back up that kind of concept. So, you know, this whole concept of, you know, why people buy from you is that, you know, they know, like, and trust you. So the more we can get that across on the website, the easier it's going to be to get people to contact you. So most of us on this call, really, our goal is to generate a lead. You know, in my business, I'm not going to sell something online. I need people to email me, or I need them to call me. So that's our goal. So let's talk about what are some of these elements here that create the environment that when somebody goes to our website, they turn into a lead for us so that we can close some business. So some of the elements here, and I'm going to use my site as an example, is we have some videos. We have this, what I call a lead generation form. We've got a letter, kind of a sales letter. So let's kind of take this apart, and then I'll show you some other examples of some clients who are using all these elements or pieces of this element. So I really believe that you need to have a photo of the owner or a video of the owner right on the home page, so that there's this identification with a person, not just a product or a service or a stock photography that you know isn't them. Then the thrust of the lead generation sites are that it actually has a free report. So something that something of value that you can fill out the information, and you're willing to part with your valuable information to get whatever this company is giving you. So whether that's a free report or a coupon or something that motivates them. And then we need a sales letter. So let's look at some of the elements of a sales letter. And most sites don't come close at all to a sales letter. Most sites are going to say things like, you know, we've been in business since 1997, and we're really great at what we do. And we maybe they'll say we work with customers all over the country. You know, it's real dry, and you could read it and you could apply that same copy to anybody's website. It's, you know, the answer is yes. So what, you guys do that? You know, what's the value of that? So the sales letter really overcomes a lot of that information. So we start out with what the target audience is. So for me, it's dear fellow business owners. It might be dear engineers, or whoever you target as your audience. And then you want to tell them that you understand their problems and frustrations with your industry or with a problem that they're having, so that they can read that and say, yeah, that's me. You actually understand what's going on for me. And then you move into how you solve that problem. So these are the 3 steps in the sales letter that I'd like to see companies use on their website that will help them generate that lead. Go ahead, Tim.
That was Annie joining the call. Welcome, Annie.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, so that's the basics of the sales letter. Then I'd like you to have testimonials that'll back up what you just said in the sales letter. So anytime you're making a claim on your website, we want to back that up with a testimonial that says, yeah, they're really good at that. They were able to help me. So let's take a look at some examples here of some lead generation websites. All right. Somehow I got on the wrong page. All right, let me walk you through mine, and then we'll look at some other ones here. All right, so first I have a video that says Why Choose Us is the title of our video here. Next to it, so you don't even have to scroll, you see this right away, is Free Report Reveals 21 Questions You Must Ask Before Hiring a Web Developer. Fill out the form below to immediately watch the 21 question responses and or download a free report. So I get about 1 person a day that will fill this out to get the videos, and then we follow it up with a phone call. So video, photo of me, free lead, some kind of lead generation report. Then we're moving into the sales letter. So here it goes. Dear fellow business owners, when I talk to other business owners, it just amazes me to hear about the difficulty they have getting a good web developer. I hear stories of unreturned phone calls, changes and updates taking months to complete, outrageous bills for small changes, and poor graphic design. So right away, you're either going to identify yourself in this or you're not. But this is kind of the profile of our typical customer, has a lot of frustrations dealing with their current web developer. So I've targeted that, 9 times out of 10, we deal direct with the business owner, and here's the problems and frustrations you have. And then we go on to say, how do we solve those problems and frustrations? Okay, to add to that credibility piece, here's a copy of my book. All right, so these are all the elements that we just walked through, so you can kind of see them together here. So video, lead generation report, helps to have a photo, and then that sales letter, and then anything we can do from a credibility standpoint. And then we've got testimonials scattered through the entire site as well. So let's take a look at another example. All right, so this is an HR consultant. So we have a video of the owner talking, and then we've got our free report, download free report, 3 simple steps to personnel file compliance and good record-keeping practices. So you see, she's asking for 4 pieces of information because she wants to know how big the company is, where I'm only asking for 3 pieces of information. So the more information you ask for, the more the less leads you're going to get. So 3 pieces of information, 4 pieces of information, still not a big deal, versus having this be their name, address, phone number, and all that other information. So that's the example here, and Karen has testimonials throughout the site as well. Okay, another free report. 4 things you must do before hiring a paving company. So again, they're filling this out. Our next example here is Marilyn Hartman, and her report here is download free report, 9 questions to ask ask your realtor when purchasing a new home. So she's getting a little bit more information here, and then we've also have a video of Marilyn and a picture of Marilyn. So you start to identify with, you look at her and you say, well, does she look friendly? Does she look like she'd be good to work with? So the more people can get a sense of who you are and your personality, and I think that's why video is so important, is because your personality is really going to come through in that video. And then she's got her sales letter here as well. All right, then I've got a pool service. So I've got our free report on the sign here. Download your free report. What every in-ground pool owner should know, 15 questions to ask when choosing a pool service company. And then we took a little different approach here. Instead of a sales letter, we're trying to answer the question, why choose Mike's Pool Service? And then I got 2 more examples here. So instead of the free report kind of concept, this is a bathroom remodeler, and he's getting more information, but he's trying to capture the promo code that he's using on different advertising, and he's getting you with a coupon. So slightly different approach from the free report, but still it's a lead generation form on here. And this is my last example of Trinity Management Association. So we've got a picture of Tim. We've got a video of Tim. We've got our free report here on the side. And then we've got, and we're doing a real traditional sales letter here on Tim's site. Do you find it difficult to locate properties that can put cash in your pocket month after month? I mean, everybody has that problem, right? And have you ever given up? Have you given up on investing in properties because managing the properties you have is an ongoing nightmare? Would you like to work with someone who really gets real estate investing and can save you time, money, and aggravation? So he's really targeting of, this is who his typical customer is. This is what their pain and frustration is, and he goes on to say how he solves that problem. So hopefully these were some good examples for you as to, what are these elements in a lead generation type of site. Any questions so far?
Let me open the mic.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Tom before we move on? Mics are all open. Okay, So quiet out there, Tom.
All right, let's talk about selling a product, because some of us might want to actually just sell the product online. And I know Tim, your client, Mike and Beth, I think Mike's on. You know, your site looks like you could certainly change that and add an e-commerce component to your site. So this section might be real helpful for you. If we want to actually make a sale online, there are a couple issues that e-commerce sites have, and I'm sure we've all been to sites and we've encountered this problem. Sometimes it's just flat out hard to find the product that you're looking for, so making the products easy to find is super critical. Then sometimes you get to a site and you found the product, but there's not enough information for you to actually make a buying decision, so you end up hitting the back button, doing another search on Google, and buying from somebody else because we didn't provide good product information. Then sometimes some products are so hard to figure out what the price is that we give up and abandon our shopping experience because we couldn't figure out what the price actually was. And then sometimes the whole checkout procedure is just an absolute nightmare, or we can't even, like, we added something in our cart, we went to look for something else, and then we couldn't even figure out how to get back to our shopping cart. And that's one of my big pet peeves is, well, how do I even check out here? So those are some common problems that we see with e-commerce sites. So let's take a quick look at a few e-commerce sites here. All right, this is a client of ours who sells drum equipment, and the biggest dilemma that they really have is navigation. So in other words, they have thousands and thousands of products. So how do you find the product that you're really looking for? So in the navigation, we started to divide it up into the type of product. So when you get to the drums and percussion section, you visually get to see what the products are, or you can read what the products are down the side. So let's say we want to take a look at cymbals. So now we're going to see all, tons of, well, there are 865 products in here. So okay, obviously we're not going to go page by page through there. So now we're going to choose. We're going to say, okay, well, what kind of cymbal am I looking for? So am I looking for a Zildjian cymbal, and is it a crash cymbal? And then I can even sort further and say, well, I'm really only interested in this size cymbal. So the easier that we can make that navigation in this searching feature of how do we find what we're looking for, we have you can do a quick search, if you know your product number or a keyword. We've got some advanced searching capabilities. So the bigger the site is, the harder this navigation is, and you really need to sit down and think about what's the best way for my customer to drill down, and how did they think, and what's important to them. So this is one way that we accomplished this task here. Another example here, this is Isaac's Deli. They're a sandwich shop. They have about 20 locations in our area, and they wanted to be able to have you order your sandwiches online and then go pick it up. So this sounds kind of easy, well, it's a sandwich, it has one price, how hard can this be, basic shopping cart. But in the end, it wasn't a basic shopping cart, because first you had to figure out what location you're in. So we'll just pick the Ephrata location. So you select your location, then you're going to select what kind of sandwich you want. And because in the store, you can change all your specifications. So if you want a sandwich that normally comes on pumpernickel bread and you want it on rye, then you had to be able to change all that information. And let's say you wanted to add chicken to a sandwich that didn't have chicken, well, then you need to be able to do that, because if you could call them on the phone and do it, then you needed to be able to make those adjustments online as well. So we looked at the cart and said, okay, well, how does the visitor or the user, how are they going to interact with this e-commerce cart, and what are they going to want to do? Because what they didn't want is they didn't want somebody to go online, not be able to make all the customizations they want, and then still call them on the phone anyway to place their takeout order. So this site has really helped all their retail locations streamline the process and take less phone orders, because now they're doing internet orders. So this is a case of really trying to customize for exactly what does that user experience have to look like. My next example here is Fox Sheds, and you would think, well, goodness, how am I going to buy a shed online? I mean, there's so many options with this. So we literally broke it down to they can shop for wooden sheds or vinyl sheds. And then they're going to select what type of shed that you want. Now, here's the big dilemma on this one. Because the price is so tied to how far is the delivery location, we needed to start with the zip code. So they didn't want to show you at any point that, you know what, the delivery charge is more than what the shed actually costs. So if they could bundle it together, then the objection of cost disappeared. So the price is completely tied with the size and the location so that I can customize every aspect of what I want in my shed, and it's going to give me a bottom line price as I go down and I change. So I want a garage door opener in this. I mean, it's every little thing. So the same kind of concept that we saw with Isaac's, that I can customize my sandwich, or I can customize my shed as well. So really keeping those things in mind as to what's the user going to experience, and that it has to be simple, because the more complex that you make it for the user, the more frustrated they become. So even though we've got some environments that are pretty complicated, if we can streamline the process, the end result will be a lot easier for them. All right, so that's my e-commerce examples. Let's talk about some just basic website fundamentals. To me, these are kind of our 4 areas that I think are real key whenever we're putting together a website. I want a good design. I want it to load on the screen fast. I want good navigation, which we talked about a little bit. And then I want good motivating content. So let's look at each of these a little bit here. On design, for the most part, I want a real professional design. It's very rare when I want something that doesn't look professionally done. And we want to keep in mind who your target audience is, because what works for Tim as a computer company, really that might not work for Annie and Kevin at Central Coding. So it's a different kind of look and feel that everybody's going to go to, so that it's really really customizable. All right, so let's take a look here. So this Homestead Structure, it's another shed company. So our target audience here is somebody that has some extra cash.
Hey, Tom, before you go forward, it looks like Tom Cassie has a question.
You bet. Go ahead, Tom.
Tom, you're on.
Can you hear me?
You bet.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, and just moving back one topic, Tom, you're talking about the e-commerce online. It seems like with the e-commerce online, you're almost making the assumption that when the customer or when the visitor gets to that site, they already know that in this particular case, I don't know that Homestead Structures is going to be selling anything, but it almost looks like you're making the assumption that when the customer gets to Homestead Structures, they're going to make a purchase from Homestead Structures, versus moving back one topic to the more informational, like with the free reports and whatnot. It almost seems like when you're selling something online, you're bypassing the step that says, here's why you should buy from me. I'm the professional. I know what I'm doing. Homestead Structures is really good at making sheds and whatnot because of this. Is that kind of true? That's what I feel like you're saying. Is that true?
No, not you're close though. In the shopping process, yeah, I'm pulling out a lot of that. But in the rest of the site here, Tom, we're putting in the client testimonials, the about us. We're giving them a lot of product information. But in a lot of cases, it is true that they've kind of already made some buying decisions because they know what they want already.
I got you.
So like when you go to Amazon and you're searching for a book, you're going to look at maybe the table of contents, some basic product information, and you're going to make your decision from there.
Correct. You're not going to go to Amazon to figure out whether or not you want to go to Amazon.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of like what I was getting out of this. I'm just making sure. This is for a whole different project besides my primary thing, but this is valuable information. Thank you. That's all.
Right. Yeah. The more complicated the product is, the more information you have to supply. So even, on the side here, they have construction specs and site preparation information, ordering information. So there's a lot of supporting stuff besides the product. I was just kind of focusing on some of the shopping cart functionalities.
I got you. Sure. Thanks.
Yeah. Yep, you bet. All right, so let's take a look here at homestead structure. So we're looking at who's the audience of this site. So we've got kind of a faded family here. So we're going for a family. Family is part of the target audience, but also upscale is part of the target audience. So these aren't sheds and pool houses and playhouses that you can go to Home Depot and Lowe's to buy. You can tell by these pictures that these are probably going to cost a little bit more. So we're going for somebody who's probably a little older, a little wealthier, and is a little more family-oriented here. All right, let's compare this to Truck Buyer's Guide. Now, this is a very male-dominated industry, so we're going for things that are very truck-like. So we've got the tread here on the background, the road as part of their logo, and then pictures of trucks, trailers, and equipment. So we're really trying to focus on who's the audience that we're trying to communicate with. So when you're looking at your website, look at it from that standpoint as well as to who am I communicating with, and is the visual design going to appeal to that audience? All right. Next, we have this conversation about how long will you wait. Years ago when you had all those slow modems, people would wait forever. But here's the reality, are you frustrated? I'm frustrated by 5 seconds if I have to wait for something. So, we're used to these nice high connection speeds, and we want things to load instantaneous. Now, sometimes it's not just how the site was programmed that creates this load time issue. It's also where the website is hosted. So sometimes when you buy the $4.95 a month hosting package, you're hosted with so many other websites that web server gets real slow and bogged down, and then your site loads slow. Now, here's not just the impact that it's going to have on the user that it's slow, but Google actually rates your website by how fast it loads, and if it loads slow, Google penalizes you for that. So having a site that loads on the screen quickly is real important, and it kind of encompasses 2 areas, the search engine marketing factor and also just your overall user frustration. Okay, navigation to me is just critical, and I see lots of companies make tons of navigational mistakes that it's just difficult to find anything on their site. The smaller your site is, the less you have this problem. If you have 10 pages, it's generally pretty easy to organize 10 pages. But the bigger your site gets, the harder it is to organize all the content. So, what happens, when somebody gets lost on your site? The bottom line is they leave. They click the back button, they do another Google search, and they go someplace else. So we want to make sure that people stay on our site as long as we can, so we don't want to get them lost and frustrated. Content is probably our biggest dilemma. When we look at our site and we say, okay, well, what do we really want people to know about our business? So that's all about content. Part of it is, well, why should they buy from you? To me, is part of the overall premise that goes through your site. But let's take a look at some content stuff. So, for this, why should they buy from you? Literally on Mike's site, that's the headline. Why choose Mike's pool service? And then here's our answer. So sometimes the why should they buy from you is really blatant and in your face, and other times it's a little tougher to figure out. Okay, so what types of content do we need? We need content that is going to help them make a buying decision. And by a buying decision, I mean that they want to call you, they want to email you, what's going to further them along to take that next step. So they're downloading something, they're getting a free quote, or they're actually buying something online as that buying decision. So the more we can get to the bottom line as to what motivates them, and I think that was part of Tom's question, is how much of this extra content are you having in there so that they feel comfortable with you, so that they trust you to further that decision along. All right, so typical things from content standpoint that we see. You're going to talk about your services, your products. I see a lot of companies talking about their community involvement. Testimonials are a huge thing. free stuff is an interesting category. So, you know, what can you give them for free? So are these newsletters, are they articles, are they videos, are they links to other websites that are a resource to them? You know, what type of content can you truly give to the visitor so that they feel like they've really benefited from being at your site? So let's talk a little bit more about the last piece, which is video. So I am just a huge video junkie, and I really think that with the increased internet speeds, that video is just going to be a huge factor in the types of things that we see on websites that we really haven't seen in previous years. And with the the little flip video cameras, or any other handheld quick little video camera that fits in your pocket, it's just so easy to shoot video. So we actually do a weekly video tip that we email out, and then we put the content on our site. So this is this week's tip, and I shot a video from the 50-yard line of Vanderbilt Stadium, and Tim's already picked on me today for this video tip. So it's using video as content. So as we go through the site, not just my video tips, but in every area of my website, I want to have video. So people that are completely lazy like me, who don't want to read and read, they can just click play and watch the video. And the more you sell a service, I think the more critical this becomes, because you're creating a relationship with somebody on the computer and you've never even met them, but they feel like they've met you because they've watched your videos. They see, they see your face, they see your mannerisms, they hear the way you speak, so they get this connection with you, and you don't even know them yet. So that's why I think videos is going to be so powerful. So, so here's video in my web development section, and then I've got 3 additional videos here under, we do a lot with social media as well, so I've got a social media video here, and actually we didn't even produce this one. This is just a freebie one we found on YouTube. And then I shot a video just talking about Facebook and how Facebook benefits your business, and if it does benefit your business. So the more you can use video as content in your website, I think this is really going to be the way of the future with video integration. Now, you can shoot video with your own little camera. You don't necessarily have to have it professionally done. And if you look through my site, you're going to start to figure out real quick which ones I had a video company produce for me and which ones I just shot by myself. So this one is one I had professionally shot. So I'm silhouetted on a white background compared to my video tip, which is in kind of a square box, which is how my own camera shoots it. So this is a good example here of video content. Let's take a look at some other ones here. So Tim, I'm using you as an example, buddy. Tim has a great video here. That's a data backup video. What would happen to your business if a disaster struck today? And of course, the hurricane's coming up the coast, so who knows, disaster might strike today. So you can get a little bit of information about this particular topic here on Tim's site. All right, we took a look here at my friend Karen's site. She's got a video here, and then actually under her free stuff section, where's it under resources? Here it is, videos of Karen. So these are other. She was in the news here. Oh, stop. So she was in a news story, and so we uploaded that. So there's lots of different ways that you can use video. This is my video guy. He obviously has video on every page of his website showcasing his work, which is kind of a similar example to what you saw that we were doing here as well. All right, so that's video as content. So which I think is going to be just the way of the future. Now, the next thing on video is video testimonials. So anybody can get a written testimonial, and I'm sure you've seen them. They don't even have the person's full name. It'll say J. Smith. It doesn't have their town. It doesn't have their company. You look at that, and one day I had an ad agency sitting in my office, and I was talking about, putting video on their clients' websites, and he looked me square in the eye and he said, I think, or testimonials on the website, and he said, I think testimonials are just a waste of time. He said, I think they're all outright lies because I've been in this industry long enough to know that we just, our industry just makes these things up. And I didn't really have a good response to him. Now I do, because I think video really negates that dilemma, because if it's a video testimonial and it's the person saying their name and the name of their business or where they live, and they're giving that testimonial to you, then it adds a lot more credibility. I mean, after all, that's why infomercials have done these testimonials within their marketing for years. So here's how the video testimonials work. All right. The idea behind video testimonials is that I'm a believer that the more you can have, the better you have. So this is my testimonial page, and we'll just start scrolling down. And eventually what starts to happen, if I can scroll here, is it's not just one or two or four or five people saying good things about you. You scroll through some of these and you think, wow. Now, really by this time, you're probably kind of bowled over with, how do you get all these people to say this, this many nice things about them? So the more it goes on and on, the more of this wow factor that you get from video testimonials. The reality is, I don't care if my prospect watches one of these testimonials. I just want them to see how many I have, so that they get a sense of that we really do help a lot of people. So, and then if they do actually watch the videos, they're going to start to see a trend from what one company says to the next company, because what we do well comes out in all these videos. And that's what ends up happening as well for your business. So let's take a look here. This is an insurance agency, so we've got some testimonials here. And this is the HR consultant that we saw with some testimonials as well. And even our restaurant here, Taj Mahal, we've got some video testimonials here as well. So it starts to add that credibility piece to your website. So this is my last example of this is a speech consultant who actually helps me with my presentations. So, he's got his video testimonials on his site as well. So you might start to think to yourself, well, geez, Tom, it's hard enough to get somebody to give me a written testimonial. How on earth am I going to get them to give me a video testimonial? And what I've really found is it's actually easier to get a video testimonial than it is to get a written testimonial. And here's why. If you get a written testimonial, a lot of times you have to ask them to write it, and they're reluctant to write it because most people feel uncomfortable writing things down, or they just don't take the time. It's on the bottom of the pile of stuff to do on their desk, so they just don't get around to doing it. So then people take the approach, oh, well, let me just talk to you on the phone for a couple minutes and I'll write it up for you and you can just approve it. So that was kind of a solution that we had for written testimonials. But video testimonials are a piece of cake, because you run into somebody, and I've done these on the street corner, I've done them in restaurants, I do in my office, their office, I don't care, wherever I find them. I've got my little flip video camera in my pocket, and I'll just say, hey, we're doing some new marketing stuff, and I was wondering if you can help me out. Now, I didn't even tell them what I need help with, but they like me, so they say, sure, Tom, I'll help you out. And they say, great, I'm doing these video testimonials, and I just need a video testimonial from you. Would that be okay? Now, they say yes. Mostly I think they say yes because they don't think I mean right now. So I'll say, oh, great. So then I pull my little camera out, and now they get a little nervous. So then you just have to reassure them that they look good, because that's going to be the first objection is, I don't like what I'm wearing today, I got a bad hair day, whatever it is, they come up with that one. And then they start, once you get them over that, then they get nervous about what you're going to say. And here's how I coach them on what they're going to say. I want them to say their name, the name of their business, and what they like best about working with me. That's it. So I want them to talk for 20 to 30 seconds. I don't want them to read anything. I want them to look natural. They can say, they can look up like they're thinking. The more these people look like real people, the better off you're going to be. So we don't want these video testimonials to look overly professional. The phone can ring in the background. The camera can shake a little bit. Somebody can walk by. I've got a video testimonial that a car drives in the background. It doesn't matter. The goal is to get the video testimonial and to have it sound real natural and that this is a real person, this is something that you've really helped. So that's kind of my tricks to getting video testimonials. So any questions so far on this? Tim, you want to open up the lines there? Tom,
yep.
Tom's hands raised.
Tom's hands up again. Tom Tassi, go ahead.
Tom Tassi's hands always raised.
I know. That's what we love about you.
Hey, listen, you know what? My question speaks directly to the video testimonials. Has it been your experience that there's a drawback to it in that what I can see would be if as a person selling a service I am targeting, for example, lawyers or accountants or whatever, and I go talk to 3 of the accountants that I work with, well then wouldn't other accountants look at this and say, nah, he's already working with Bob, I don't want to work with him? Or, you know, another law firm might look at it and go, you know, I wouldn't want the same computer guy as they have. Have you experienced that? Is that a real concern, or am I piping up a wind that won't blow?
I haven't worried about that. I think if you have a business where you can only do 1 or 2 of a specific industry, I think that's when it might become an issue to get a lot of the same kind of company. But Tom, I think for you, the more you have that one vertical that you say, hey, I work with all these attorneys. Look, I work with these 7 attorneys. They're going to say, oh, well, you know, I know Bob or I know Jeff. I play golf with him. Yeah, okay. Then he'll end up talking to him about it to say, oh yeah, Tassi does a good job for me. You should trust him.
Excellent. Okay.
So I think it'll work
like
to your advantage.
Okay.
I haven't run into it. Even with we do websites for no lie like 10 or 15 shed companies, and I still haven't had it be a problem.
Excellent. Okay, cool.
Does anyone else have any questions for Tom?
Yeah, let's don't have me carrying the conversational ball over here.
Hey, Tom, why do you think we agreed to have you on today?
Entertainment value.
Exactly. Okay, Tom, I'm going to mute everybody out again.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so these are all the fundamentals of web development. So in other words, know what your goal is, know how to get to your goal, and then meet all those fundamental things that make websites function. You know, once you get the core of the website down, now it's time to start to drive traffic to your site. Now, that's not our topic for today, and I know Tim and I have talked about doing some internet marketing webinars as well. So, you know, your next step is to really look at Google and say, okay, how do I get to the first page of Google, and whether it's organically or it's their pay-per-click model. Facebook is a great way of marketing for some businesses. You know, if your customer is the end consumer, to me, Facebook is an absolute must-do. Facebook also has a pay-per-click model, so you've got some potential there. And then email marketing is another great way to really stay in touch with your customers and your prospects on a regular basis to keep driving that brand and that expert status and getting them back to your website as much as possible. So these are all things that we help our clients with. Tim asked me to give you an idea of, you know, what do websites cost, because website costs can be anywhere from I've seen them as low as $250 to hundreds of thousands of dollars for a website. So the way we structure our website design is the design itself is $1,000. So in other words, what's it going to look like? And then we charge $250 a page. For special features like shopping carts or photo galleries or blogs or any kind of custom programs, we'll quote that out as a separate from a page rate, so that at the end we'll give you a flat rate as to, you know, what's your website project, what kind of investment are you looking for in that. So Tim twisted my arm pretty heavily, and he said, Tom, if I'm going to have you come on, you have to give all my friends a discount. So I have a My Buddy Tim Shea discount. So any of Tim's friends that want to have us help them with a website or their internet marketing, we'll give you $500 off just for being friends with Tim. So Tim,
thanks, Tom.
Yep.
After that.
Awesome. Any other questions? That was a lot of information.
There's Tom Tassi again.
Awesome.
Like a bad thing to keep turning up. Hey, I have a question regarding site navigation. If one of the things that I've been noticing is if there's an ancillary thing for a site, and I'm going to use my personal experience here. We want to offer up as a service to our clients, completely separate of everything else, to be a recycle center for them. Has it been your experience that a recycle, something like that, like offering it's almost a completely separate service, different from what we normally do? Should that be a link that leads to a separate site or to a page within the site? And I'm looking at that from a navigation standpoint, and from an SEO standpoint, and from a other people looking for computer recycling, just as an example, but aren't looking for computer service. What are your thoughts there?
You could really do it either way, Tom, but I would probably put it as part of your site. So in other words, even though it's a separate service, I want them to still think of you associated with that service. You could certainly buy a unique URL. So in other words, you could buy recyclingcenter.com or Kenosha Recycling Center, whatever, and that web address would go to that page within your site. And then probably on your homepage, I'd put some kind of icon or something that would draw them into that section, if that's going to be something that you want to start to push.
I got you. Sure. Okay.
But I don't think I've
seen it both ways.
Yeah, I don't think I'd build a separate site for it, because from Google's standpoint, it being associated with your main site, that main site's going to have a lot more pages than just this recycling website would have, and Google likes sites that are bigger. So
okay.
I think I would keep it all together, because it still does relate to your primary business. Like if you said, we're opening up a flower shop, I would say, no, Tom, you need a separate site for that. Because
and to have a conversation, about. Never mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You're right, Tom.
Well, I know you're a sensitive guy, so
I'm gonna hurt you. I knew you would go there. Leave it alone.
Tom, honestly, I didn't think about it. So if it's totally unrelated, it needs to be separate.
I got you.
But that's tied together enough that I would keep it together.
Okay.
Hi, Tom, I've got a question for you here from Jason from Intact Solutions.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead, Jason.
Tom, back to the Facebook and the social media. Do you have any recommendations, or quickly go through designing that page too? Because it's kind of part and parcel. If you want it to translate well, if you're doing a company Facebook page, and do you have any suggestions on where to go with that?
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, you think?
All right, you Tom Tassi.
All right, I'm shutting up.
All right. Here's what we do with Facebook's pretty interesting from what you can customize. So Facebook's going to let you customize an entire side banner, and they've really made it nice for web developers to be able to write the code. They've really changed how they're doing this now. So we can create a lot of information right here, but then before somebody likes your Facebook business page, they're going to see what's called the welcome page. And this can be completely customized as well. So in other words, I'm using the same kind of free report on my Facebook page as I'm using on my website. And I've actually gotten leads off of my Facebook page here on this lead generation. So we can customize that, and then we can customize as many side tabs as you want. So there's a lot of things you can do, and Facebook really acts as if it's its own little website, which is pretty cool. Now, the trick to ongoing maintenance on your Facebook page is that your wall, so in other words, the message that you're pushing out, that you do it every single day. So we have to constantly be pushing our message out to our fans so that it pushes through their network. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.